when people turn into inhuman creatures, when the soul of the Ukrainian land is being ravaged, and terrible harvests are gathered from the fields, when coal mines are mined, flooded, and polluted, when forests are burned and destroyed, the crime has a name. Its name is ecocide. Since the first day of the full-scale war, 2,500 crimes against the environment have been documented. The total damage has exceeded 54 billion euros. More than a third of Europe's biodiversity is under threat. Unique species of animals and plants may disappear forever. The attack on the KAKHOVKA hydroelectric power station is the largest act of ecocide in recent decades. The amount of water we lost as a result of that would be enough to provide a 2-day supply for the entire humanity. Russian troops occupied the Chernobyl nuclear power plant for more than a month, and the Russians still control the largest NPP in Europe, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, blackmailing the world with a nuclear winter. So the world can no longer stand by while nature remains a silent hostage and collateral damage of armed aggression. Volodymyr Zelensky's peace formula is intended to become a practical action plan and a guarantee of lasting peace. Peace that cannot exist without restoring justice and environmental safety. The Ministry of Environmental Protection of Ukraine has developed 7 unique methods for calculating the damage caused. The Prosecutor General's office is documenting war crimes against the environment. Criminal proceedings on ecocide have already been opened. A mechanism for compensation is being developed. Russia's terrible crime must be punished. The perpetrators must be held to account for the sake of future generations, for the sake of justice, for the sake of the environment. United for justice, united for nature.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to welcome you to the second day of Summit United for Justice, United for Nature. Today we have a packed schedule of different discussions which are scheduled to conclude at 5 p.m. Our esteemed guests and experts will continue to discuss topics related to colossal losses inflicted on Ukraine by brutal and ruthless Russian invasion. Our common goal is to find a mechanism for compensating these damages and holding those responsible for them to accountable. The second day of our summit will open with a welcome speech. Yulia Sviridenko, First Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine, Minister of Economy of Ukraine.
Dear participants, dear guests, thank you for the opportunity to remind once again about the crimes that Russia is committing against our environment, against humanity. They brutally kill Ukrainians, they destroy our cities and villages, and devastated forests, our unique natural resources, pollute rivers and lakes. They use prohibited phosphor bombs, they mine roads, they mine infrastructure, they mine water supply system, and they mine even musical instruments or children's toys. The war continues, and Russia continues to commit crimes, causing close damage daily. In total, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, over 2,500 environmental crimes made by Russia have been documented, included 14 cases of ecocide. Estimated calculation of damages amount to 55.6 billion euros. And unfortunately, these numbers will only grow. Each new day of war causes environmental damages of approximately 120 million euro. And it's without ecocide made by Russian at KAKHOVKA hydroelectric power plant. As a result of the dam explosion, 1 million Ukrainians lost access to drinking water. 100,000 people in 80 settlements suffered from flooding, and 140,000 people were left without electricity. So losses for the environment, millions of dead fish, damage to biodiversity, ruination of largest irrigation system in southern Ukraine. So this is the result. Dozens, if not hundreds, of Russian mines ended up in Dnipro and Black Sea. We, together with Kyiv School Economics with UN, have estimated the losses from the Russia detonation of KAKHOVKA hydroelectric power plant, and we estimated that this loss about nearly $14 billion. The exact figures, of course, can be assessed only when we liberate our land from the occupiers. However, we need to start to overcome the consequences of these terroristic acts now without waiting the war to end. So combating Russian ecocide and protecting the environment are among the top 10 priorities of President Zelensky's peace formula. We regularly hold meetings with our international partners, members of the working group under the 8-point of peace formula chaired by Andriy Yermak. And I'm grateful to all who are involved and helped us to overcome these complex challenges. And our goals, together with our partners, assess the environmental damage caused by Russian aggression, seek the tool for the compensation, and hold the aggressor accountable for environmental crimes. And I'm confident that all this comprehensive work will help to restore the environment and, of course, to boost the green transition of Ukrainian economy as well. Restoration of the nature cannot begin without the mining. It serves a zero stage of restoration, a zero stage of the reconstruction of Ukraine. Ukraine seems to be the most contaminated country in the world. 174,000 square kilometers, or 1/3 of our territory, are potentially contaminated today. First and foremost, this is a challenge to the safety of people living in these areas. Explosive objects have already caused harm to 780 individuals, out of which 250 people lost their lives, and 529 people have been injured. The most recent incident involved 2 teenagers who found a mine in field, and unfortunately it detonated, resulting in death of these 2 boys. So if we don't demine our territory, it can consequence to the big tragic. Over 6 million Ukrainians are at the risk because of the demining, and the number of accidents could rise to 9,000 people up to 2030. So we, like a Ministry of Economy, is making maximum efforts to coordinate the humanitarian demining issues on the territory of Ukraine. So first, we are ready to test the most advanced technology for the mining activity. So Ukrainian companies, even today, using drones, they're using artificial intelligence, they're using scanners. So in parallel, the Ministry of Economy has launched a hackathon or startup for the mining activity. Second one, our task is to create the grow production. So it means that we want not just to import the heavy machines for the mining, but we want to produce them themselves in Ukraine, to localize the production and to start the production of own production of heavy machines for the mining. As for now, if we speak about the problem for the mining, it's 1/3 of our territory. It's obvious not enough. 30 machines for the mining and 3,000 the miners. So we need to start the production of our local machines for heavy machines for the mining, so to speed up this procedure. The third task is to create the competitive demining market. Yes, I think it is going to be Ukrainian know-how, but with the possibility of conducting competitive tenders through ProZorro, we can also speed up the procedure for demining and to start the demining of agricultural lands, of forests, of water and underwater demining. Fourth, it's a compensation for companies purchasing the mining service through the ProZorro auction. The 2024 state budget allocates 2 billion hryvnias, it's around 50 million US dollars, to refund to the farmers that would like to purchase the mining service from the private operators. It also could help us to speed up the procedure of the mining itself. And the fifth, we aim to attract experts to train the miners and other staff. Ukraine urgently needs specialists. By the end of the year, we plan to increase the staff of the Ministry of Defense in charge of the mining activity and emergency service up to 5,000 miners. But obviously, it's also not enough, and we will need to train more. So this is definitely not enough because World Bank estimates that we would need to allocate around 37 billion euros to provide the mining activity all around Ukraine. So we must collectively stop the aggressor because the evidence of the tragedy of KAKHOVKA show us that no human values can stop the terrorists. So that's why we are very grateful to you that you are here today and we're discussing so important issue, and I hope that we would have the fruitful discussion today at the panel where I'm going to participate, and we would have the more deep negotiation on the mining activity, because I really believe that without the mining, like the zero stage of reconstruction, we won't be able to restore the environment, and we won't be able to restore our buildings and houses, and we won't be able to return Ukrainians back to Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Svorodenko. The facts you presented give us a clear understanding of the immense challenge facing Ukraine today, but without any doubt, with the strong support of our international partners, we will be able to address all of them. Our first discussion panel today is dedicated to one of the most heinous crimes committed by Russians against the Ukrainian people, Ukrainian nature, and all of humanity. Please pay attention to the screen.
These are not Martian rocks. This is Turkey. It is a beauty that is not man-made. These are not lunar landscapes. This is the Sahara. It is a beauty that is not man-made. And these are not endless green pastures. This is a river, the Ukrainian river Dnipro, and what the Russians did to it. Within a matter of hours, the water rose by 11 meters and covered 80,000 villages on both banks of the Dnipro. 600 square kilometers were flooded. The survivors had to be evacuated from the disaster area under constant shelling. The preliminary estimate of damage has already reached more than 3.5 billion euros. The operation of the Zaporizhia NPP is under threat. The local population is left without drinking water and electricity. Agricultural lands are also without water. This is a blow to global food security. The destruction of the dam caused an environmental disaster, desalination of the Black Sea, pollution due to oil leaks and mine drift, death of rare species of animals, and flooding of protected European sanctuary areas. The water has gone. Nature is healing the wounds. But the consequences of the eco-terror will be felt for decades. The Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine is investigating the blowing up of the KAKHOVKA dam as a war crime. The case was immediately referred to the International Criminal Court. Bringing the perpetrators to justice is a step towards preventing eco-terrorism in the future for all countries of the world, without exception, for the sake of future generations, for the sake of justice, for the sake of nature.
The subject of plenary session number 6 of our summit is KAKHOVKA hydroelectric power plant, clean water terrorism, the biggest technogenic disaster of the last decades. Moderator of the discussion is Vladislava Hrudova, Development Director of the Kyiv School of Economics. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming. We will start this day with one of the biggest tragedies that the world has experienced in the last decade. It's a KAKHOVKA hydropower plant dam explosion that happened on the 6th of June this year. And I'm grateful for all the panelists who came today to share their view, opinion on the consequences of this dam explosion, on the possibility to recovery from this catastrophe. So we will start, first of all, from the presentation of all panelists. We have today Mr. Yulian Popov, Minister of Environmental Protection and Water Resources of Bulgaria, Ms. Yordanika Rodika Yordanov, Minister of Environment of the Republic of Moldova, Ms. Viola von Kramon-Traubel, Member of Parliament of European Union, Mr. Sergei Vlasenko, Deputy Minister of Environmental Protection of Ukraine, Bernardas Padegimas, Team Lead of the Environmental Policy and Strategy Team and Stockholm Environmental Institute, and Mr. Alan Dombrovsky, Director of International Operations of IDE Consulting Group from Australia. Thank you so much for coming, and we will be starting shortly from the first presentation of Mr. Sergei Vlasenko, Deputy Minister of Environmental Protection of Ukraine.
Catastrophe. During the war, we have developed an app for your phone. It's called EcoThreat, where we have created dashboards that calculate the damages caused to the environment. And after the KAKHOVKA catastrophe, we created a separate dashboard because a lot of journalists and eco-activists and the civil society at large were interested in what was happening in KAKHOVKA. So we have developed this app. We've added separate dashboard, and we continue to update those numbers. There is a separate chapter in the app on the KAKHOVKA catastrophe. You can see it on the screen right now. Our EcoThreat, EcoZagroza app displays the damages. It also allows you to monitor the situation. We also display certain mediation measures. So the essence of this app is to play the role of a mediator between society and the government. So if a dangerous situation arises, a person can take a picture, send it directly through the app to the ministry, and then the ministry will send it to the environmental inspection that calculates the damages and responds to all of the threatening situations. This app can be downloaded if you scan the QR code on the screen right now. And then you will see the results of our work on your phone. Just like Ms. Sviridenko has mentioned, Ukrainian territory is heavily mined. And being in Kherson Oblast, we have seen that the vast majority of forests and agricultural areas are mined, heavily mined. And you cannot step off of a paved road because it is extremely dangerous. Some territories don't even have the proper markings. That's why on the sides of the roads there are ropes hanging up, and it marks the possible danger of the territory being mined, so you should not cross over the rope. So being in Kherson Oblast, we have constantly seen forest fires. The ecosystems were on fire, the marshes were on fire, the forests were on fire. It is impossible to put out these fires because fire trucks cannot reach those areas, and so they continue to burn on months on end. And this is very unfortunate, and it hurts my heart to see that. You can smell the smoke in the air constantly, and people are being blown up on those mines. Animals are being blown up on those mines. But the first time we came there on June 6th, there were very few people in Kherson. Our next secondments, we could see more and more people that were coming back to Kherson. There were young people, there were children in the streets. And so during our last trip, we were right by the market, and we could see many people at the market. But still, Russia and Russians continue to shell using heavy artillery, targeting any concentration of people. So we saw the terrorists, what the terrorists have done in Israel, and Russia is using the same methods. They do not care whether people are civilians or military. They just strike any concentration of people. So we can see clear indications of genocide right here. The war has brought us together. And, right, it says united for justice, united for nature. The slogan is very, very important because Ukrainian population has come together. It is easy to break one thread, but when there are millions of threads woven into a rope, it's almost impossible to break that rope. The same goes for people. The war brought us together with the entire civilized world. We are extremely grateful for the support and assistance to all of our colleagues from all over the world that have joined our efforts and that continue to fight side by side with us against this evil. So that's my brief presentation about how I feel about the Kakhovka Dam. Thank you, Sergei. Thank you for this presentation.
Thank you so much. So indeed, we saw that Ukraine has quite quickly mobilized all the resources and partner resources. Immediately after Kakhovka Dam explosion, I was part of some of the discussion. I saw daily work of the embassies, including from your countries, with our government. So I would like to invite our next guest, Iordan Karodika, Minister of Environment of the Republic of Moldova, to share your view from the Moldova side on the Kakhovka Dam explosion.
Yes, thanks a lot for, first of all, offering me the possibility to speak today and also to participate in this event. This is a very important event, and I'm really glad that now we had the possibility to discuss about the international crimes on environment and especially all the damages which are caused by the war, especially on environment. So when the information about the catastrophe of Nova Kakhovka appeared on the public news in the Republic of Moldova, almost all the authorities, journalists started to call us asking what kind of risk we have in Moldova after such kind of catastrophe. From the first analysis, it looked like Moldova is not affected because we are not part of the same river basin. But if to analyze deeply, if to analyze from the environmental perspective, if to analyze from the aspects of the long-term effects, Moldova is also affected. So I would like to mention that indeed the war has made us to revise our readiness to cope, to capacity to discuss, and also capacity to respond of the consequences and to meet the new issues. Was caused by destruction, pollution, other outcomes including the transboundary of military actions. So we started to analyze and we started to look what kind of risk we have for Moldova, taking in consideration the fact that we also have the hydropower stations, plants in Moldova, and we also have dams. This is one issue. The another issue is very important that we started to discuss that it is a moment to look more deeply in the effects of the war on the environment and what kind of preparedness and what kind of readiness we have to face such kind of risk, and what kind of calculations, what kind of methods for the estimating the risk do we have at this moment. So honestly, at that moment, almost all the companies started also to ask if they had the possibility to sail and to invite people to visit Black Sea, because it was the summer, it was exactly the period when all the kids were ready to go to the Black Sea, and we started to discuss with the colleagues from Romania, colleagues from Bulgaria about the possible risk of the health and also to environment. So thanks a lot for all our colleagues which support us in this evaluation. So collapse of Ukrainian Novakakhovka dams is a grimace of humanity, ecological catastrophe with destruction, pollution, and the wild equatory or the Black Sea, which we already realized at that moment, and is for sure the risk of diseases and unfortunately also for the nuclear contamination. We need to meet and to discuss about the consequences now, and also to decide how to move on all such kind of situation. The collapse of Novakakhovka dam has also the domino effects and also the long-term effects, because as a result of such kind of collapse, we also realize that we need to start working on modeling the consequences, and also not to forget how to defend those who cannot speak, and also the habitats of those who was destroyed. Also, we need to find the solutions not only for human, that is the priority for us, but also to think about the environment, also to think about the wild animals, also to think about the forest, also to think about the quality of the soil, water, and about the risk of the contamination of the water, underground water, with the results of destroying the waste water treatment system and also of the landfills. So all of them are the risks, all of them are the consequences of such kind of destruction, and also we need to find not only the questions to which we need to give the answer, but also we need at the national, at the regional level, we also need to find and to assume the task to make all these modelings and all these calculations. International community has to make the strong commitment at this moment, and how to particularly to identify the environmental crimes and how to evaluate such kind of crime. Without any compromises, clearly to declare that what shall be who should be the responsible for such kind of crimes, and how to identify and how to investigate such kind of crime. Because the issue of investigation is very important. It is very necessary to find the correct methodology and also the tools for such kind of investigations. We discussed it yesterday that it's very complicated to investigate the war crimes. It is already demonstrated by history. But it is more complicated to demonstrate and to investigate the war crimes which affect environment, because environmental crimes are very complicated to demonstrate. It's necessary a lot of instruments, tools, capacity, and knowledge how correctly to investigate such kind of crimes. We already discussed this issue in the Republic of Moldova. We just finalized the new version of the chapter of environmental crimes in our penal criminal code, and indeed it was a big debate how to formulate the environmental crimes, how to investigate such kind of crimes, who is responsible for investigation, who is taking all the responsibility for this process. So indeed, the conference United for Nature, United for Justice, it is exactly on the right moment, exactly on the right possibility to unite different politicians, not only at the national level, but also at the regional level, and to discuss not only the environmental crimes conducted at the national level, but also to take in consideration the transboundary effect. Because, as I mentioned in the beginning, the domino effect or the Nova Kakhovka catastrophe will affect the countries from the region in a long term. Because additional to the effects of the catastrophe, we will have also the climate change. And all of them together will affect the environmental situation in the region, the quality of the water in the Black Sea, the quality of the wildlife in the Black Sea region, and also will affect the quality, environmental quality on other countries. So it is a moment when we need to think more deeply, when we need to have more strong community of all countries in the region of the Black Sea, and to act as a strong, united community against the environmental crimes. Last but not least, institutional mechanism, operational framework for the detection, assessment of the war-caused environmental crimes, as well as calculation of the compensation and cost of remediation and of the consequences is a priority at this moment. This is a very difficult aspect which we require to mobilize the best experts, and here if you allow me, I will come with the proposal to the universities also to unite themselves and also to start working and thinking more deeply on such kind of topics for raising the education of the lawyers, ecologists, and everyone who should take the position on this perspective. We need to have the pool of experts, and we need to identify them, we need to unite them, and we need to offer them the possibility to communicate and to work together. Very important aspect is the data collection, the validation of the data and sharing the information, technical and financial resources, which was already mentioned by Madam Minister of Economy and also by colleague from the Ministry of Environment, that it's a really big cost. And such costs will need to be identified, such costs will need to be correctly calculated, and more than this, transparently used. So, and we need to think in a long term. We need to act now and to think on a long term, because unfortunately, environmental pollution, environmental destruction is not possible to recover in one day. It is long-term action, and it's long-term task which we need to take as a big responsibility. The consequences caused by the war shall be on the top of the political, regional, and global agenda, with no compromises for the crime, with paying due attention to the component of environmental damage and its compensations, especially since, sorry that I am repeating myself, damage to the environment and ecosystem has no borders, but long-term, widespread, and multi-layers adverse impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Danov, and we are grateful that we know that you had a visit 20 years ago to Kyiv to visit a conference on environment for Europe, and we thank you for continuing supporting Ukraine, and we are happy to welcome you even in this unfortunate topic and situation. And referring to your thoughts about international aspects and regional aspects of this dam catastrophe, I would refer to Mr. Yulian Popov, Minister of Environmental Protection of Water Resources of Bulgaria. Mr. Popov has informed me that he was appointed on the 6th of June this year, and basically, which I imagine what was the pressure on you, because you your populations should be also very worried about the situation and the consequences, even for your country and for the region, Black Sea region as a whole. Please tell us your view on the Kakhovka Dam disaster and the consequences and, of course, recovery.
Thank you very much. And I would like first to thank the government of Ukraine for organizing this excellent conference and to express my government's support of your immense effort and fight against this incredibly cruel and unjust war. And to express also my feelings of how amazing your sort of high spirit is in this prolonged crisis, which is example for all of us. And indeed, this is a war that affects all of us. It's our struggle too. Even you carry the burden and the main tragic consequences, but it's our responsibility to be deeply and seriously involved in it. Indeed, I was appointed on 6th of June, and from the first day of my role as a minister, Nova Kakhovka was the main topic of my role. It was strange. I was thinking that I would deal with other things, but immediately I had to deal with this. And when I say I had to deal with this, it was a very odd situation, because the first reaction was widespread panic. What exactly is happening? Then we set up a team to analyze the situation, and then we came across something very strange. A recording from leading Russian journalists who were discussing how to use this case of Nova Kakhovka in order to ruin the tourist seasons in Bulgaria and Romania. And their very weird and cynical logic was that if they ruin the tourist season, that will trigger protests across Bulgaria and Romania, and for some reason they were thinking that these protests will be in favor of Russia and against Ukraine. I still can't understand what exactly was in their mind, but that was a very cynical and mad view, because usually when you commit a crime, you're trying to hide the consequences, not to be proud of that, and not to inflate their impact. This was a case in which they were saying, oh, we did something bad, but let's tell everybody that we did something bad, and if we say that if what we did is even worse than it was, that's even better. So what kind of mind you have to do that? And then we had classified information about other sources and even other governments that were hoping to happen then. So I was then in contact with your minister and with the Romanian minister of environment, and we started working together to understand better the situation and what the impact would be. Indeed, that led us to the understanding how important it is to work together on crisis like that. And my first meeting with the European environment ministers was very soon after the Nova Kakhovka case. So I inherited Bulgarian official positions on several things that I had to report, and I didn't agree with them. So my participation in the Council of Ministers was, well, that's our official position, but I don't agree with this position, so let's talk about something else, because indeed the case of Nova Kakhovka, while it's a national crime, a national disaster, It is something that has an international importance. It is something that is affecting the whole of Europe, even if it is not physically spreading across Europe. Because, as Jordanka said, environmental crimes are difficult to define very, very clearly. They have a very wide and long-term impact. I've been working for quite a long time on climate change, and this is one thing that I've learned, that we have to think about the long-term effects and the long-term risks. Even when we're in the middle of a crisis of some kind, we have to understand what this crisis means for wider communities, for future generations, for all of us. So, and I think that it would be very, very important for all of us to understand the deep and long-term effects of environmental crimes, and specifically this case, which was a hideous act of destruction, of a stabilized, massive stabilized environmental system in Ukraine. When I was presenting it in Bulgaria, I was usually saying that this KAKHOVKA Dam is 27 times bigger as a water volume than the biggest Bulgarian dam. So it's a huge thing. So, and I would very much agree with this idea that we have to establish a regional scientific and research effort so that we can assess the consequences of the destruction and the long-term consequences, and continue to work on that, engaging the wider European and global community as well.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your support. We can imagine how it's also complicated for other countries, because we see that a lot of your embassies has also managed to react very quickly on all of this situation, as I said previously. And as Yulia Sviridenko has mentioned before, we had this KAKHOVKA Dam assessment happened, presented just recently, and actually it was not a surprise, but it was kind of different situation from overall war and damage assessment, when in the loss part, environmental losses came as the biggest part of all the damages. I know that European Union has a lot of help given to Ukraine, material help and humanitarian help, financial help that we are expecting to help next year, starting from Ukrainian facility. So I was wondering to ask our next speaker, Viola von Kramer-Traubel, and I'm sorry for misspelling your name previously. Please tell us more about views of your member states country on KAKHOVKA Dam. What was the reaction? What is your view on the recovery or potential recovery and general potential of cover all the needs that Ukraine has right now with the help of international partners next years?
Thank you very much, Vladislava, for this kind introduction, and thanks a lot for having me here this morning. I think this is really a very important debate we have to have, and honestly, I would like to put this terrorist act into the broader, bigger picture. Especially in Germany, but not only there, everyone was speaking about the use of tactical nuclear weapons, and everyone was very much fixated on how could this happen and how much damage this would mean, not only to Ukraine, but also to other states. While in this moment, I think the Russians planned already something where they not from the very beginning admitted that it was them. on the opposite, they still try to blame the Ukrainians for that. They still try to, I mean, their propagandists were parroting that it was the Ukrainian side, and they were, before they admitted this and became even more cynical, they were trying to give the impression that Ukraine did this to harm their own people and the occupied territories. So I think at this moment, we need to underline that this act of terrorism, this explosion of the KAKHOVKA dam, was really this what we call the super GAU, so the super most damaging act which could have happened, and especially what you have said, these long-term threats, the long-term damage is as bad almost as with this nuclear radiation pollution. So now, of course, we have to deal with the consequences of this explosion, and even more importantly, we have to deal with the rehabilitation. I see that, and this is also important, that our intelligence have warned us that things like that can happen. And the cynicism of the Russians had been also proved because they raised the water to a historical high levels. So the seismic station detected an implosion from inside the structure and not from the external projectiles, as the Russian propagandists have been parroting here. What we could see then after a few days and with the help of the intelligence was clearly that the Russian fingerprints were all over. And what we also then saw is KAKHOVKA is a continuation of Russia's ecocide in Ukraine, which was mentioned by the Deputy Prime Minister this morning. So this imperialistic instinct dictates that if I cannot have it, none shall have it. And that is what Ukrainians suffer, not only here, but especially here. So we have seen through the invasion that the Russian invaders are massively and illegally cutting down Ukrainian forests to finance the bloody war. They have destroyed countless Ukrainian chemical and industrial plants, releasing toxic substance into the oil, water, and air. They have used phosphorus and other chemical weapons, devastating flora and fauna. And mined, we have spoken about this, the most mined areas worldwide. There are thousands of square kilometers of land and sea. And here, the countless wild animals, pets, and livestock, not to mention the humans, which are suffering now. We have seen that more than only 200 animals from the KAKHOVKA Zoo, for example, are drowned because the Russians blew up the dam. And yes, what we were discussing is how to keep and how to hold Russia accountable for this crime, and how we can also have a discussion of what needs to be rebuilt and how this needs to be rebuilt. I know that many of the environmentalists in Ukraine are not so, how to say, convinced that the dam should be rebuilt in the same way it was built before. I have been to Zaporizhzhia many times, and I know that this Sich National Park, this Kaminska Sich National Park, located on the Dnipro River in the Kherson region, shows how nature takes over now and recovers naturally after such disaster. But of course, I know drinking water, groundwater is essential for more than 1 million people. So this is a discussion we will have to have during the next weeks and months to come. The same goes for the Irpin Dam, which the Ukrainians had to blow up for strategic reasons. And of course, at the end of the day, and this is then important, now I come to the question of the money which the European Union will give to the Ukrainian government. We need to make sure we have a combination of the environmental, humanitarian, and the economic needs of the country. So we have decided that we will give 50 billion euros for the next 4 years. This is an important impact. But of course, it also comes with a conditionality. And the conditionality means also a very inclusive approach. And this is why we are here, and this is why it needs to be debated in which kind of procedure things will be built up again. Of course, it is in the hand of the Ukrainian government, but it needs to have a clear institutional readiness also from the Ukrainian side. And we have spoken in many different groups with many environmental groups how this environmental reforms can be used as a precondition for green recovery. I don't think any decisions are being taken so far, but it's clear that we need an environmental monitoring system. So far, with many buildings and many plans we have seen before, there was not an impact assessment, an environmental impact assessment. I think this starts to change now. In the past, we had a rather post-Soviet system. And of course, environmental enforcement must have the authority to inspect the sites, conduct tests, and then present the evidence to court. Environmental inspectors are not able to do this until now, and this is why we are pushing also for the reform, that this should be implemented as soon as possible, and international donors will definitely give the technical and the financial assistance with training and equipment. We need laboratories, and Minister from Moldova has mentioned the scientific transboundary needs. I think there's also the European Union, the right donor to help with this. And of course, what we would like to see is a system which is as transparent as possible, and that was also mentioned. We should not use cases like this for any kind of corruption, but this is, goes without saying. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so
your
much.
attention here.
Thank you. To be honest, I'm sure that you as a politician dealing with a budget each day, you are not afraid of talking about billions of dollars. For me personally, as I am managing the damage assessment project in Kyiv School of Economics for over a year, and each time I see this immense figure presented by international partners or by our organization or by others, and when we saw this KAKHOVKA dam, we imagine additional zeros behind the scene of the recovery needs in Ukraine. And we do understand that it's impossible to do it on our own, unfortunately, for Ukraine. We do believe that, as all of you have mentioned, and we are grateful for this, that Russia should pay basically for everything, including environmental risk, including all environmental damages and losses cost. And I think that for international society, it will bring us more justice to this world that is basically has a very difficult geopolitical situation these days. And I'm thankful, and we will move to next speaker. It's Mr. Bernardas Padigimas, team leader of the Environmental Policy and Strategy team at Stockholm Environment Institute, and we will have a presentation. Thank you, Bernardas, for joining us today. I know that you will be presenting your view on Ukrainian perspective in Green Deal and new projects that are launching today for support Ukraine's green agenda for next years.
Thank you very much. I think first, thanks a lot for invitation, kindly from the Ministry of Environment, and I think I would really like to express big admiration, I think, for Ukrainian people, I think for this strength and resilience and determination, and I think it's a privilege to support Ukraine. And I'll talk a little bit about a concrete project, and it's It's a little bit, I think we heard in terms of concrete situation on the KAKHOVKA Dam, and we talked from the Ministry of Environment, and we had counterparts from Moldova and Bulgaria. And I'm going to show an example a little bit of kind of moving forwards and some specific actions that we're planning together now. I think moving into project concretely, it's called Green Agenda for Ukraine. It's important to mention that it's a regional umbrella of the project, so we're actually working on the similar project in Moldova, and we launched actually last week together with the minister from Moldova as well, the project in Chisinau, and we're working also in Georgia, in Armenia, so we're also looking at the kind of aspects of potential regional collaboration. We're looking at the transboundary impacts that also been mentioned explicitly today, because for pollution, for water, there is no boundaries. So I think it's important also to think on the kind of regional and connections. But going back into the project, I think it's important. On Monday, we're launching this project here in Kiev. Together under leadership of the Deputy Prime Minister, Olga Stefanishyna, and also under coordination of the Minister of Environment. And we're going to have a little bit more like a working meeting. We're going to discuss, and we're going to have representatives from 8 ministries, from the Cabinet of Ministers. We're going to have different representatives from international organizations, NGO, and we're going to work on the concrete plans and how we're going to move. But to a little bit explain the project a little bit further, the primary objective is to support Ukraine in reaching and moving towards climate neutrality. And it sounds very ambitious, I think, talking of a very concrete problems on the ground and for people. But I think it is also important to move forwards and see which direction Ukraine is going. And I think we see really a lot of support from, not from us only saying, like, needs to do, but from Ukraine itself, from Ministry of Environment and others, really ambitious and trying to, to see and kind of driving this whole process. We have kind of, we're going to look at what is possible, how is it possible. We're going to look at the specific examples and go into some, let's say, modeling and some other opportunities, see what kind of concrete actions needs to be done, what is already being done, and how to move into the short-term and long-term steps. We're going to very specifically support Ukraine with the kind of immediate EU integration needs in alignment with the specific policies. We're going to look and work on a kind of a little bit further looking, what does it mean alignment with the European Green Deal for Ukraine? How can it be done? What does make sense in a kind of local context looking at that? We're also looking at how to work and how to support with engagement of stakeholders, of public especially. And this is a very tricky situation to deal also in the current times, especially if you're talking about climate neutrality, green transition, and to communicate this message that it's not only, I think, important to mention that it will cost a lot, we need to sacrifice, but it's opportunity and it's a benefit for Ukraine. And also we're going to work on a capacity-specific work, with especially focusing with ministries and different agencies. Quickly to just mention, the project is kind of embedded around the European Green Deal, and so we're going to have teams of experts within each thematic area working, collaborating, and we're going to look from this more traditional, the energy and mobility, but we have very important aspects on, for example, finances. So we're going to have the whole team on international, EU experts and local experts on looking on finances. What we're talking about is finances, the needs for transition, what is existing, how does it work now, how to utilize different tools, digitalization, social aspects, what kind of different policies, what kind of implications can it do, how to avoid and to manage it. And I think just one kind of also important aspect about the European Green Deal is that we say, Ukraine has to align its policies and others for its move towards EU accession. But I think it's important also to mention that this is also a necessity for Europe to bring Ukraine close, because Europe, Green Deal is European framework, and it's its own ambition to be climate neutral by 2050, very ambitious. But it's important to realize that you cannot move. It doesn't work on a standalone. You need to bring your immediate neighbors, such as Ukraine, as close as possible. And so this collaboration in advance is really important. This is just quick on the kind of a simplified version of the deliverables of the project. The most important is the roadmap, which we are discussing also on Monday, and we'll be actually discussing for quite many months already. And I think it's important also to mention that the project is funded by Sweden as well. And I'm from Stockholm Environment Institute, but Sweden and SIDA has been kind of co-creating this project together with us and with the ministries of Ukraine. And so the main kind of deliverable is this roadmap where we want to understand the immediate current needs, but then also pave a longer direction of how Ukraine is, what is the ambition, how we can move. Is it possible, not possible, what is it required? To do that, we're starting now with a comprehensive assessment. So we're going to look from kind of legal basis, institutional capacities, what is missing. We're going to look at finances. We're going to look at different kind of aspects on smart policy opportunities and utilize tools like that. And the roadmap also is important to say that from our side, I think we're providing expertise, we're providing support, but the driving force has to come from Ukraine, and this is what we're working for a long time. It needs to be their plan and the Ukrainian roadmap, and it needs to fit for Ukrainian needs. Just quickly on the last two, these deliverables you see on the right. So one is the project proposals. This is basically to say that we want to move from theory to practice, meaning that we want to take number of key priorities and to develop together with specific partners, with specific donors, into concrete projects that could be moved on into the implementation and to move this roadmap further. And then capacity building technical assistance. I think technical assistance is also very important to mention because I think people say, okay, look, this is such a, long term, we have needs now. So technical assistance is also aiming to support now Ukraine with the current needs on how this kind of big group of experts can support moving even now, even next year, to support the ministries in Ukraine and different agencies while we're preparing kind of longer-term plan. And just to finish this, I think, how we're kind of planning to do, I think it's sort of quite ambitious, and it's very also particular situation, and I think one important thing is we need to work through ownership of Ukraine for this. We're going to launch a national steering committee on Monday, comprising of different ministries where we're going to cooperate and work together. Second is expertise. We're bringing amount of experts from EU, from Bulgaria. We're bringing from Baltic states, from Sweden, who have expertise working with different approximation processes, carbon neutrality. We have a big expert group, local experts, who are going to work together in these teams. Then the third part on how we're going to do is also lessons learned. So I think this is also very important that we're bringing Swedish. I think very important to mention Baltic countries' experiences, Estonian, Lithuanian, and Latvian, on how it's been done, what kind of reforms what could work, what could not work, and situation of escaping from the Soviet Union part. So I think sharing this knowledge and concrete examples. And fourth one is scientific backing. I think this is also very important. Stockholm Environment Institute is also a research institute, so we actually do the scientific research in the house on all these different aspects, and then we work on how it can be applied in situations like this project as well. And the cooperation, the last one. So I think cooperating with ongoing work and needs, and I think different projects, there's so many initiatives happening and so many, so I think it's also very important to make sure that the wheel is not invented, but we capitalize on what exists, cooperate with different partners, and work together on this. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernardas. And it's